Okay, this is being recorded on the 9th of January 2016, 4:59 p.m. here in the Pacific Northwest of North America, Olympia, Washington, the WA state, as we like to say around here, or the wet side. This is a wujo in response to a query about the subject of the three major thirds and the minor third and its arcana, which won't make any sense at the moment. But here's how it kind of works. Going to get into a couple of quick points, and then I'm going to get into this discussion. I'm not going to be in a position to take the time to go into the source material for a lot of the stuff I'll present. It's readily available all over. I'll put some of the source material in the links to this video when it's up on YouTube. The primary source material for the discussion of the being human part, what it is to be human, comes from or can be read at Harold Percival's book called Thinking in Destiny. It's available as a PDF, so you can get it free on the internet. It's a nice book. It's an easy read, even though it's about 1,000 pages. Real straightforward. Anyway, so the source material for a lot of the other stuff is readily available. I can get into it some other time. It's just going to be one of those things where I can either tell you about what I'm going to present, or I can present it, but I just don't have time to do both. So we'll just assume, as the Brits say, that this is an as read. In other words, you're just going to accept that I have a basis for telling you these things. Whether or not you accept the material is immaterial, is not the issue. You know, you certainly should use your discernment, but we're just going to assume that I do have sources for this at the moment, and I can get into that at some point in the future. So basically, the subject matter comes up from a Twitter exchange about the nature of what it is to be human. And so this is one of those things where we have to use a whiteboard. So I'm going to apologize up front for the lighting. I just can't do it very well with and get better quality lighting on myself without inducing vast quantities of glare, which would make the whiteboard less than useful. So we're going to start off, and we're making certain assumptions that you're going to hear most of this, even though I'm going to get all whipped up and get involved and turn around a lot. But I'll be able to repeat it if there's anything that's missing, if you can't quite catch it all. It's going to be very complicated, but relatively straightforward, assuming that, of course, we're accepting the basic principles. So we'll start with common understanding of universe expressed as a symbol, which is the yin-yang business, right? So that we have duality expressed. And so if this is the blue one here, then that's blue as well. So if this is the blue one here, then that's blue as well, and we have duality expressed, inner and outer, interjoined duality. Now, humans are not like that, even though that is the universe into which we are presented, into which we are made manifest. Something to note for another talk later on is that this basic symbol here actually expresses the idea of four, because we have the 1, 2, 3, and 4 elements, all joined as one within the circle. Also note that in most cases, when I represent a circle up here, I'll be dealing with that as a two-dimensional abstraction for a sphere, because the sphere is the most compact, efficient shape in universe, and everything wants to resolve down to a sphere given half a chance. So we're going to really talk not about universe this time, but rather about what it is to be in universe. And that's where we all find ourselves. Anybody that's listening to me at this point that is a terrestrial Homo sapiens shares a common experience of finding ourselves within universe as it is structured. I can't speak to any other kind of hominid, so you're on your own, guys. You got to work that part of it out on your own, because I don't know about y'all, but I do know about us guys, all right? And so here's what it is to be human. Now we're going to use a lot of this as graphic, graphical representations of abstract concepts that I'll then describe. But we're going to basically drill down in, or we're going to drill down in on some very basic stuff that is discernible and replicatable. And so I need to say something right up front for all the Masons, all the advanced Masons out there. If you stick through this whole lecture here, or whatever the hell we want to call it, discussion, you will come to recognize that, yes, indeed, I do have a grasp of what's going on, and I do understand the significance of the 3, the 6, the 9, and the Yakim and the Boaz. It will not, in what I'm going to say is complementary to your understanding. Even if you're at a low level of the Masonry understanding of symbolism, you'll grasp some of what I'm saying here is indeed the way that it's described to you in those kind of lost arts. Or preserved arts, and I'll explain why they're preserved. Okay, so now let's get a real quick grasp of how humans are defined, or how we express ourselves. First, we have to come up with a basic concept. The basic concept is that humans are, and this is not pandering to, to ego or anything, humans are just too great, they're too big to shove into a body, okay? So if we were to look at humans and our bodies, let's just imagine that we're looking here at, this is universe. This is universe with a big U, and this is where we all live. And so us all guys, we're all in here, and we're all packed in here pretty tight, and this is in universe. But most of us, come over here, guy, most of us, most of any of our individual selves is not within this sphere here, or within the universe, within our spheres here. Let's also acknowledge right off that even though we look, approximately like the stick figures, we're in fact more of a toroid. We're more of a very giant spherical thing in reality when you get a picture of us as an energy being. The stuff we see and perceive of as matter can be thought of as condensed energy, but we're also emitting a much larger non-condensed forms of energy as well that are part of our body. And so if we take our body in total, it's much more spherical in nature. So we can just think of ourselves as these big spheres walking around, but most of us are stupid and we recognize only this little part of ourselves. And even then, even people that see auras really are only seeing this little shaded area that barely hovers around the body right there. That is the intersection of the two primary vortices of the toroid that create us. So even the aura seers with any ability are limited to what they're really seeing. They're not grasping the whole of us. And again, this will be explained as to why too, if I can get through it all today. So here we are in universe. Let's get rid of everything except for one of us, and let's say that this is you right here. Well, this you is in fact a 1/12th part of a major third of the total being. Okay, so let's look at this for a second. While the universe itself is duality expressed that instantly breaks into 4 because of the inner, outer, as inward, as outward, as below and above, all of that, it's all replicating, it's all mirrored. So you end up instantly, as soon as you have duality, you have a set of 4. However, humans can be thought of as representing the expression of a third, of a tertiary being, a tuple, a triune being. These are all expressions of what we really are, and that we are in fact something that looks more like this. And there's really within there's 3 large spheres that all intersect. And we can think of ourselves as both this larger expression here, as well as the smaller expression, which is me in universe. This is universe. We can think of ourselves as both of these things, because we are simultaneously. Most beings within universe, as humans, find ourselves limited to this level of perception right here. So this is your standard, this is what we can think of as what it is to be a standard human. So let's get rid of this. Let's get rid of that. So we have some more room here. Okay, so all right, so let's deal first with those parts of us that are not in universe, because it makes sense to just go through those real quick and explain what they are, label them, and then come on back and show the interrelationships a little bit further on in the process. We're going to expand a lot on the ideas that you'll find within Harold Percival's book, Thinking and Destiny. Again, link below. But we're going to go beyond that and include a bunch of information that is current, applicable to you, shows you where you are in some universal cycles and what the hell is going to be happening in the future. So bear with me, please. Some of this stuff really is necessary to get there. So now, to recap here, we are these three-part beings. One of this part up here we'll label with the letter T, and one with the letter K, and one with the letter D. And so this being part of you is the thinker. And I know that you think you're smart, and I know you think here in universe, but you do not. Okay, you take my word for it, you do not think. You simply receive thoughts. You don't generate them. This can be proven very easily because you can't predict what your next thought's going to be. It simply is plopped into your head. We can go into that some other time. It's quite complicated, this whole universe place here. Anyway, so the thinker part, this over here is your knower. Now, the knower is different from the thinker in that the thinker can be thought of as mentition, as a thought process, aware of itself as a thought, gnawing on universe and bigger things than universe. Because bear in mind, all this is outside of our concept of universe. The knower is that part of our beings that can be considered to be the condensate of all of our previous lives, all of its knowledge condensed into what we in this universe pick up as intuition. Okay, so bear with me just a brief minute here while I draw some quick lines. This is again you in universe. So the knower brings in to you intuition, my intuition. The thinker brings into you your actual THOUGHT, your actual thoughts. So your intuition and your thoughts combined basically make up what you experience in your conscious awareness walking around doing things. You're aware of your intuition sometimes, some people are not. There's all kinds of reasons, some of which we'll get into. Now let me go back to this part of us that we haven't discussed just yet. And that's the D, okay? Because these are simultaneously the same and different. Your sense of self, who you are, your feeling every morning when you wake up and knowing that you're the same son of a bitch that you were when you went to sleep and not somebody else in this body, that business comes from this section up here that we call the doer. So this is the doer. Only we'll make it a little bit more complicated here because we're going to say the doer in the body. All right, because here's our problem. This is our three-part major split in humans. Okay, this is the major thirds, the major third harmonic within consciousness that allows humanity to exist as we understand ourselves. So this third, and it's no accident, by the way, that symbol becomes something else later on. But this tuple, this triune, this tertiary being, is us in the greater sense. Now, the part that we are at the moment, experiencing each other, talking to each other, the internet, the reality, food, everything, all of this business, breathing, that part is not this critter up here. We're using this graphically as a representational element, and you can take it as read here, as understood, that this big D up here is too big to shove into our little tiny bodies down here within universe. And so, hey, guess what? None of it comes down. Only 1/12 of it comes down. Duh, why do you think we have 12 in the astrology? Why do you think we have one? Why do you think 12 is significant throughout all kinds of elements of humanity, from counting time to other elements and so on, feet, inches, and so on? Well, it's because at one level we understand ourselves to be 4, 8, 9, 10, 11, and 12. 12 beings within the doer. Now, here's where it gets a little tiny bit complicated, okay? You are just one of these. So your current life that you are experiencing right now is just one of those 12. Yet all of the other 11 are seeing and experiencing at some level that you are not able to perceive mostly, and most of the time you're unable to perceive this. But those other 11 are in fact viewing and grokking universe, experiencing some component of universe through the body as you are in this instant. Okay, let's say that you had 11 channels of information feeding into your awareness, but you may actually have 50 or 100 or 1,000 channels going through you, and those 11 are what you get as this little subcomponent, and the rest feed up in this chain into the other parts of the doer in the body. Now, this can be understood from a yogic perspective if you just wanted to start getting into weird-ass numbers, okay? There's like, I think there's 72,000 nadi, little points in your body that compose the body within the electric field, the giant, larger electric field. These are the intersections of all of these, let's call them life force lines, like magnetic lines intersect in a weird magnetic experiment. We've got life force lines that intersect, and they form these 72,000 nadi, which come down to 114 chakras. Chakras. Not all of these guys are in your body. Not all of these 114 are in your body. So there's really only, like, I think it's 108. There's 108 chakras that are in your body. And of those, really, we only pay attention to the 7 in the Western world. We're really messing around with the 7. It's because the other 100, the rest of them in the 108 are also interrelated, that you mess with one and you get this group. And so you can think of them all as groups. This right here, because our doer in the body is complicated. So these 72,000 nadi could be thought of as sensors, body awareness picker-uppers, sensors that then transmit that information in these ropes up into the other parts of you, and that's what you actually are. And if some being within universe or without universe had a larger view, they could actually view you in this perspective, where you are just the big toe, so to speak, in this larger, grander being. And that's really what we are. Now, real quick to step through some other things, because we've got to get to the matrix that shows how all this stuff works. These 12 subsections that are the doer, you are one of them. The other 11 also get born. We are born in series. So there's 12 of us, all told, and half of them are male and half of them are female. So if you're here now, then whatever you are gender-wise, so if you're a female now in this body here, then that subset of you that is uniquely identified. All right, let me back up a second here real quick. Even though we feed into the grander being of the doer, each of these 12 subunits can be thought of as having a unique ID, okay? A feeling that is slightly subtly different than the doer in the body in one of the other 11. So there will be a commonality feeling, and then an expression around that commonality that is unique. So I'll graphically show that real quick right here. And so here is our doer in the body in a larger sense. It has within it the grander self, if you will, that we all feel within the body every morning, constantly. That's the self within us. However, that self can be thought of as having 12 different subset unique IDs that are a feeling that is slightly different than the one next to it or the one behind it. And so in that sense, it's more like having, in a computer sense, because we're making these things after our own image, it's like having a slot, having 12 expansion slots, and you put in 12 different video cards, each one going to a different video camera. And they all were focused at the same thing. Even if they were just sitting right next to each other, the view would be ever so slightly subtly different and would project a slightly different feeling into the larger video itself. Even though they're all clustered together, all focused at the same thing, and all those video cameras feed into the expansion slots. And all the expansion slots feel the same in terms of what they're showing to the computer. In the grander sense, the view would be a series that would be like this, where each one of them would be ever so slightly off in some way, as to provide an extra different little bit of a perspective. And so we're quite grand beings. And this is where our responsibility is as persons, as individual expressions, as one of the 12, as being one of the 12 that form the grander triune being, as being one of the doers in the body. And you don't know how privileged that is, by the way. If you fuck it up, I mean, if you waste this life, you have no idea, because you're mostly really ignorant about these things, as to what you're actually wasting. And the horror that you're going to bring to yourself in future incarnations. Because the universe don't let up on you. Just because you're going to abandon it this life doesn't mean you're going to have to deal with it. You're not going to have to deal with it the next time. So let's get into some more of the mechanics here real quick. So here you are, and you're a female in this body, feeding into the grander thing this time, right? Well, you as female also might be this doer right here. Well, here's how it kind of works. 6 of these beings are going to always incarnate as female. 6 will always incarnate as male. So I will always, the unique ID down here, that let's just call this clif prime male, and we'll call it dy, and I'll explain why in a second. Dy prime. Okay, so clif prime male, dy prime, that's my unique ID. We're just making these numbers, these coordinates up, so don't take them to heart. But that's my unique ID, okay? Whenever I am born, I will always feel the same way, and I'm always going to be born male. I'll never, ever experience a female body as that unique ID that is me currently right now. I will, however, experience what it is like to be female, because half of my doer unique IDs are female. And so every time I incarnate as the larger doer in a female subset into a female body, intuition and stuff comes on in, that comes on back, that feeds into me, even though the next time that this unique ID incarnates it'll incarnate as a male. Boy, I sure as hell hope that's not too complex. So basically, if you're female now, you'll always be born female, okay? Even though there's 6 parts of your doer that are also you in a very meaningful sense, that are also you and shares this part right here and this part right here. They'll always be female, and then there's the parts that are going to always be male. And combined, we form the Doer-in-the-body 12, group of 12, what's known as the minor arcana. And that's why we have minor arcana and tarot cards, yes, and other things. But of the major thirds. Okay, so we get born in series. Okay, and this is important. That is to say, we're not all in existence. Let me take it personally now in that sense. There's 11 other parts of me that are currently alive, but not within universe. Those other 11 parts are up here in the grander doer, and they're being fed some level of information processing from all these tendrils that are going on up from the nadi that are throughout my body, that form into chakras and send this information up. And so they're getting and processing that level of information at some level, while they're in a incarnate state that we won't go into at the moment, okay? But they're not within universe, and even though they're part of me, and I am them, they are me, and it gets really confusing. But nonetheless, I'm the only single representative of this grander triune being here in universe at this time, within these circumstances. So now I'll die here in a short while, and then when I'm reborn, the next part of me that will reborn. Okay, so let's jump back up to our hypothetical female here that we were dealing with. She's here now. She's going to die here. Let's say she dies 10 years on, okay? So she lives over the next 10 years. She's 70 now. She's going to die when she's 80. And she has 10 more years here. And when she dies, the being right here ceases to exist in universe. At some point in the future, the next one of the subsets to incarnate, which will be male, will be born into universe. And it won't happen right away necessarily. Sometimes there's rules about this as to why it does, what the timing is. Frequently the spacing is quite large because of a lot, basically because you got to burn out all of the crud you're through and then get clean before you can have that next incarnation to absorb stuff again. So it's kind of like you got to purge your hard drive. we're using computer metaphors. So here's how it looks this way. So these are the females in terms of the birthing order here. Female, 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 male, 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 and this was just one of the orders that I'd become aware of. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay, and we have 5 or 6, and then we have male. Okay, so here's the thing. We alternate in terms of how we get born through this series. So the females will, every time a female gets born, there will always be a next incarnation as a male in between, but all of the female incarnations are connected, forming the females group of 6 into 1/2 of the doer. So we're building as we're going on up. Thus, the 3, the 6 component of this, insofar as the Masons, oops, sorry about that, guys, up there too high. Thus, the 3 and the 6 component of this, insofar as the Masons are concerned, and Tesla, for that matter, he recognized the understanding of the 3, the 6, and the 9. Okay, so all the females end up getting 1, 2, 3, 4, 6. What's wrong there? Female, 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 male, male, female, male, female, male, female. Okay, and so female and then female, and so, and because it's interwoven, it replicates the like the double helix and everything. It also replicates other components of the vortices that we're involved with within the universe here, including ourselves as these two intertwining sets of near magnetic wave kind of things, this level of duality that then joins and becomes the third. Okay, so we're back into the third. I'm getting rid of this part right down here. All right, getting rid of that. So we see that we're born in series. There can be a time delay. There will be a time delay between the births of all of those. It forms 2 halves that are interlaced there, and you'll see some of this stuff replicated later on in the rest of this quick little talk here, which ain't all that quick, but it's complicated. Okay, so we're going to get through all of this. So our person here, who's a female, she gets she dies 10 years on, and that's 2026. Okay, now let's say let's just look at it real quick, and we'll just apply some numbers that for this particular hypothetical case may be factual, but no one else's numbers necessarily have this kind of spread. But our hypothetical female here, when she next incarnates, when that being next incarnates, it'll come in as a male. So that was our female, and that was her date of death. Okay. Now, when she next incarnates as a female, might be a considerable spread, because what will happen is this: there will be a period of time of absorption of all of the stuff that this individual had in life, and then the next male in that series will be born. And so maybe that might be 2042. We're just picking numbers here, right? Doesn't necessarily mean anything. And so that's a date of birth. This male, say that this male is born in a slightly more enlightened period of time, and he lives 100 years. So he'll die at 2142, and that's his date of death. And then there's a period of time here that is gone before the incarnation. In these periods of time, you're in what is known as your metempsychoses, the period of time between lives. Within there, you will experience what we call hell, only there's plurals, there's 2 of them, and you'll also experience heaven, and you'll also experience what are known in other cultures, but rarely discussed in Western cultures, and that's what we can call here as the deep rest. Okay, this is critical because it's after you've gone through this stuff to experience the good and the bad. It's kind of like you experience the good, the bad, and the ugly, and then you just need a big sleep, and then you sleep it off for a while. And the deep rest is all of that is built into these sections right here between lives. Now, get this. And here's something that sort of makes sense. The more energy you have in a life, the more tumultuous time you live in, the more things you do, the more you experience, the more energy you take in, the longer in apparent years will be these recovery periods. which makes sense. You got all that energy you got to burn off, okay? So you, which when that part of you that was alive in the 1789 period of time and participated in the French Revolution had a whole lot more shit to burn off than when you were alive in 649 as a goat herder in Greece and you didn't do much. And then in 1789, here you were hacking off heads, and boy, you had to burn off a lot of crap. Okay, and so basically, that's where this period of time is between births. So the next time that this being here, as a female, would experience being born as a female, might be because maybe this as a male, maybe this guy was a real badass as a male, did lots of stuff, had to burn off lots of stuff, and so it might actually be that the next time that this female gets born is in the year 3060. And so she went from this life in the 20s. So if that being could retain, if this individual subset of the doer, if that 1/12 of the minor arcana could actually remember herself from life to life to life, there might easily be 1,000+ year span in there that is missing time, so to speak, that doesn't make sense to that individual because they're unaware of themselves in the larger doer in the body. And I sure hope that makes sense because we've got to move on. Okay, so all of this has got to go. Basically, between each life, you've got an undetermined period of time here that is based on how much crap you do in your life and what you go through. Okay, and that relates to the 9, but I can't get into that now. That's a whole other discussion. So let's look at something and how this stuff works, okay? And why it works. So, all right, so let's have an understanding here of the giant paramecium. Okay, first off, let me suggest that if you've never ever looked at it, you go look at DJ Sadhu, his YouTube channel, and you look at the vortices spiral metaphor for the solar system and the galaxy, because it's much bigger than that. And it will make a lot, and this talk will make a lot more sense if you look at this discussion of of the galaxy this way, because see, this is all interconnected with us and what we are and why we are. And this will explain it real quick and real easy, I hope. Okay, so we are we're on a planet that is spiraling its way behind a sun that is acting like a big-ass comet, and it's dragging all of the planets behind it in their individual spirals. So from our viewpoint, we can always see the outer planets. If, for instance, we were orbiting Earth, then we could only see the outer planets rarely when the sun was not obscuring our line of sight with its light. So we would only see the outer planets here. So heliocentric with the sun in the center makes no sense at all. But if the sun is presumed to be a comet fashion thing and it's pulling us along like this behind it, and all of the planets are thus, then Mercury's action against the sun when it's up in here, showing its retrograde motion, makes sense because we're looking at a spiral being shown to us in a two-dimensional fashion against the sun. This is something that we need to bear in mind. So our sun is like a comet. The whole metaphor of all of the universe can be thought of as things in motion, as comet. There's no such thing as a stationary solar system, stationary galaxy, or any of that. Shit's just moving like as fast as it possibly can. All right. That having been said, we are in a galaxy, and if we represent that galaxy as a circle, that galaxy itself, we're right here on that galaxy. Our galaxy itself, this whole galaxy, is spiraling just as does the Earth, only it's spiraling around what we can call the dark sun. This is what the Nazis called, or the National Socialists and the occult people in the Nazi period called the Schwarze Sonne, from which they get the SS. And it means black sun. And that's the center of our apparent universe. Now, we are spiraling around like this as Earth around the sun. So we have an apparent elliptical orbit. if we were to take a chunk, we get that, and just cut it off this way, it looks like an ellipse, even though it's in fact part of a larger spiral. So what we're doing in that sense is we're making a two-dimensional graphic representation of our spiral as an elliptical orbit, sometimes for purposes of discussion. So that's what I'm going to talk to you about right at the moment. Our galaxy is doing this giant spiral around what we can think of as our dark star, or the black sun. Now, it is also spiraling, and so we're going to deal with that in a two-dimensional ellipse fashion for what I have to show you. But we're just taking a section of that out of there. And that's what this ellipse is. And I'll actually make it slightly angled up, and I know it'll end up looking like paramecium or something, but that's okay. All right, so now some other things to know about our ellipse and our dark star. Our dark star, just like our spiral behind our sun is not, we're not equal at distance, spread out all the planets and everything. There's a twisting motion among all the planets themselves, and it's all asymmetric. That is also true of at the larger level of our galaxy, following behind or twisting around the dark star. And so our ellipse here is against an asymmetric background. So let me make it a little bit more round, just so that we get a slightly better view. And here, let's just say this right here is the DS, our dark star, okay? This is the center that puts out all the energy that our galaxy and dozens of other galaxies are all following around. Okay, so you'll notice it's not in the middle. This is very important. This is something that we need to understand. Now, here's why we need to understand this. This loop is the 25,920 year cycle that is frequently cited in all the occult crap. And that's the loop of our galaxy and our solar system within the grander galaxy around this giant dark sun, okay? So let's just say that we're right here at the moment, and this represents our whole solar system. And so Earth is within this little tiny thing here, and you're on the Earth there. So you're really small relative to all of this, and this is huge, hugely giant, because that's our whole solar system, not just the Earth. All right, so we're zipping along against this at 25,920. Now, if we divide this in half, we end up getting our half cycles that again are so frequently discussed in this, or in the occult. I need to step through all of this stuff fairly quick before I start losing my numbers and so on. Let me see if I've got them here. Yeah, I've got them in this other one. Okay, hang on a second. Okay, so half of our cycle here is 12,960 years. We note that there's, at the ends of each of these cycles, that there's all kinds of weather issues that go on, cataclysms and so on. We also need to note that from a human perspective, let's look at it from an energetic perspective. If our galaxy is here, and our solar system is here within our galaxy, and it's zipping along after this thing, and our solar system is involved in this larger orbit, then as it gets closer to this, to the mass of the powering thing that powers the whole giant ellipse, our dark sun, it's going to receive more information and more energy. And so there will be a period within its elliptical precession basically in a vortex, in a helix, behind this dark sun, where it's getting more energy than at other times. So it'll get more energy over here than it will back here. And so this will represent an interesting kind of an understanding to present to you. If we were to divide this into chunks, we can divide this into from the golden age out to the iron age, and I can show you how it works very easily. So let's chop this thing up real quick. These lines are just made for my convenience and to allow me room to write. It's not that kind of a graphical representation, but I'm just going to do this kind of thing here. Let's just slice it like a ladybug, And let's say that our ladybug has a pair of aft wings. Okay, so here's how it works out. So this is our golden age here. This is also a golden age here, because these periods of time, even though we're going in this direction around it, as we approach and get into this period of time, this is a point of maximum energy from our darks to sun. This is the point of, again, another one of maximum energy. This period right here gives us this maximum energy, and that's what we can think of as our golden era. And these are the silver eras, because you're getting a lot more energy as you're going closer to the dark star, and even getting more energy here as you're going away from it, bearing in mind your motion is that way. And then these would be the bronze or copper, and then these would be the iron ages. Okay, because of course you're getting less energy as you go away. Now here's something. Let's put some numbers to these real quick. This one lasts 5,184 years. So 5,184 years. I think this right here is 3,888. Maybe it's 890. Some of the numbers are a little on the off side because there's disagreement on these. But they're within a few percentage of each other. This is 2,592. This is 1,296. Now we know this one from a bunch of reasons. We know that there's 1,296 years in this particular age here. Okay. The reason that I can't take the time to go into why we know that. I just need to get on with the other stuff. If we wanted to look at it, these are also the yugas. So here is the Kali Yuga. Here is the Dwapara Yuga. Dwapara, P-A-R-A. And here is the, what's that guy? Treta. And here's the Sat Yuga. Okay, so and it just reverses here. Okay, and so this is how that works, right? And so these right up here add up to this, and then we have our 25,920 year cycle, if it were an exact ellipse. But bear in mind, it's not. It's in fact a spiral, and so we're looking at this in a two-dimensional fashion to give us the appearance of an ellipse that provides us with the ability to look at these numbers so that we can look at the larger picture of what these numbers are telling us about what it is to be human. All right. Okay, so because of things that have happened in the past, because we have some astrological or astronomical identifiers, we can actually place this one right here back at about 3115 BC. Okay, we can actually go back and place these things this way because of certain references that we've got. So we know where we are relative to these particular markers. We've got a number of markers that clearly define this period of time as being this Iron Age, at furthest away from the dark sun output that puts out all of the energy that fuels all of the suns, etc. So we've got a temporal marker. We've got a peg for this. We know where we are relative to that. We know we're not in the Kali Yuga anymore. We've left it. In fact, we're about to leave the Iron Age or the Bronze Age and go into the Silver Age. We're about to go into the Treta. I always do that. Treta Yuga, or the Silver Yuga, the Silver Age, and we'll be there in 65 years from now. We'll be in that period. So we're actually probably much closer here representationally. We're probably right there. And we're about to cross this boundary and leave the bronze and go into the Silver Age, into the age of silver, which is a happy time for us. Okay, now basically from Silver Age to Gold Age, back through gold and into silver, that's about 10,000 plus years. About half of our cycle here. And so this is happy times for humans that we're getting into. Now, unfortunately, I won't live to see it. Probably a lot of the people that are listening to my voice won't live to see it. But we can actually do shit now that will leave our impression on it. And this comes back to us being reborn, and I'll tell you why. That's 10,000 years, guys. So that's a really good opportunity in terms of just mathematics that you're going to be reborn in this period of time. Even if you croak in that before we get there 65 years from now, 65 years, it puts us right there. But actually, we'll start feeling we're feeling some of the effects now. Let me point out that at each one of these boundary crossings, we get weird ass shit happening here on Earth. And that's because we're in a spiral and there's external forces that are affecting that spiral. And when we get to some of these points, like right there on magnetics, in a magnetic sense, with the external environment, as we spiral around the dark star, we get the excess energy, and we get into a abiotic situation where energy is coming into our system or matter is flowing into our system, and we've got to deal with it. And that's what's going on now. Is that we have a growing system because of where we are and the matter and material coming in, and it screws with our weather. So this is understandable. So we've got a bunch of years here. So 65 years from here to there, and then it'll probably be something close to maybe 100 years before things calm down. Now that's nowhere near representational, because bear in mind, this is almost 4,000 years right here. And so really it's like this, we're talking real close to this particular line, but my dry markers are not that fine. Anyways, but so 65 years, and so we've got a period of time here where we've got basically, well, we've got 10,000 years here, and then we've got another 4,000 on either side of it. And so we've got a period of time where we've got 18,000 years where we've got a really good shot of being born again in a really decent time. So, party time, right? Better than the shit we've been through when we were born in this period back here. And so that's kind of the way it is. Now, here's some of the mechanics of it. All right, so okay, so first I need to point out something. Again, because of the nature of these spirals, there are larger cycles than this one right here. And we see these with these 100,000 plus years. It's actually this times 4, and minus a little tiny fudge factor, because we're dealing with the fact that it's not an ellipse, it's actually a chunk of a spiral. Okay, but every 100,000 years, we reach a period of time that as we cross from the Bronze Age, here, where we're at now, into the Silver Age, we start prepping for the Ice Age. So we have this Ice Age Ice Age cycle that comes around about every 100,000 years. That's directly related to our position relative to the dark star. Now, we are in that particular end of a super cycle of one of these groups times 4. And so we're going to be dealing with the components of an ice age. But here's how this ice age works in this grander understanding of things, okay? The ice age is a process that takes multiple tens of thousands of years, 10K years. And it takes multiples of those to go through its complete cycle. And what happens is that if you're in that boundary right here where we get these ice ages, every 4 cycles, 1, 2, 3, 4, and this is where we are right now. And that's where we are right now. And if you were in one of those where you get these ice ages, then what happens is, as you cross these boundaries, you get more and more turbulent periods of weather and so on. Even though this is going to be a golden age and a silver age, you're still going to have shit weather to deal with. It's just that you'll feel a lot better about dealing with it, probably. And I'll explain why in a minute. Okay, but it builds up. So you have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 periods here where there's going to be transition, if you will, where you have weather periods that are going to last for a block of time that are super chaotic as we move into this position here, and it creates the ice age. Now, here's what happens. When we get to this number 5, it's ice age from that point on until it starts to thaw at the thaw point, which is somewhere in the next half cycle. So you go through the entire 2 Bronze Ages, almost, but all of the Kali Yuga period of time, the 2 Iron Ages, are spent as an ice age. So here's the downside of this. You'll get born in here in this 18,000 year period of time some point. And then you'll get stuck being born in here in the ice age. So don't screw around when you're born in here. Toughen up. You're going to need it when you get over to this cycle. I'm not joking, but I really am. Okay, let's go on with some of our other stuff here. Okay, so the mechanics of it all, why it all works. First off, why don't we know this shit? Why don't we remember this kind of stuff? Well, it's because we are not as close to this. When we get up into these other cycles and you're born into these cycles right here, you're going to have a whole lot different relationship with your own consciousness than you do now, and your own senses. You'll see better. You'll see different things. You'll see at different levels. You'll hear stuff, smell stuff, and be much more attuned with what's going on. You'll be at these higher realms of consciousness. The doers, the 12 bastards that are up here, whoever gets, when you get born into these things, you end up with a better body. Everything is a lot better throughout the whole biomechanics of this whole process, and you end up with better cognition and betterment, and you'll know a lot more about this as you go through it. So, but as you go through back here, you go to shit. You lose your mind. You lose your mentation and your cognition, and especially in the Kali Yuga. And by the way, let me point out something. It is within this period of time right here that we have developed the greatest thing of all, monotheism. Killed more people in modern times than any other stupid idea we've ever come up with. Let's all worship a giant guy in the sky who's wearing a different skirt than everybody else's giant guy in the sky and kill everybody else whose skirts are different. That started here. That's monotheism being developed, right? The great monotheistic religions all based around the Middle East, which we've got all that shit going on all the time because of these dunderheads. Were all developed right here. The good news is they all die right there. They're gone in 65 years. There'll be remnants. People will look back and say, you believed what? What kind of a delusion was that? You know, and it's gone in 65 years. We can even see it happening now. You can see the rise of the anti-religious over the past time, and the frothing at the mouth, the fundamentalism, the being rabid about it, got to kill, kill, kill. That's the sign of the squeezing of that wave as we go further and further on into fewer and fewer individuals who have to express it more violently as it needs to erupt out, and then it'll go poof and it'll be gone. So in 65 years, sometime thereafter, presumably we won't have to deal with that as an issue. And so this is my understanding. And so anyway, so monotheism existed, and it peaked in here. And it's been waning ever since, and it'll be gone right there because it doesn't exist here. Here you've got telepathy. You can probably fly from your farts like the space goats. You know, all of this kind of stuff. Really cool stuff. And here's why. As we get closer to this, we get more energy. So let me, I'll leave that right here. We can still sort of see this. So here is that dark star represented again, giving off all of these bands of energy. And they are broadly elliptical because they're part of that cycle, because it also does the looping, the spiraling. Okay, so as we get into these periods of time, we get into periods of where the levels of energy coming on in, not only do they screw with your lives, by the way, because they increase that downtime because you're getting more in. Even though it's a golden age, you're taking in so much, it takes you a lot longer to process. So there's that greater space. And so you find yourself, there is not a regular periodicity of this. And I can show why each one of us as an individual 1/12 of the minor arcana will go through and be born into each and every one of the zodiac major zodiac positions, so that we'll have a different experience each and every time in each of our lives. And so we rotate around this in various different forms within our reincarnations in order to fulfill the necessary requirements to give us the maximum level of experience as required and needs to be expressed by our bodies. Now, okay, so all of our, I'm going to hopefully be able to get done with this real quick. Wow, didn't think I'd be able to do it this in less than an hour, really. But here's the thing. Okay, so let's call something by two names, and let's call this a hard name and an easy name. Okay, and the hard name here is going to be this right here. We're going to call this a radiant mental atmosphere. Okay, a radiant mental atmosphere is a mental atmosphere is a a radiant atmosphere, not an oxygen or not a material atmosphere. It's an energetic. It's energy. It's an energy atmosphere, but it's an energy atmosphere that's not like an arc welder. It's energy atmosphere that is thoughts, that's consciousness. So that radiant mental atmosphere that we all have as subsections of the grander triune being expressed within the body as the 1/12th part of the minor arcana, that radiant mental atmosphere is directly affected by how far we are away from the dark central part of all of the spiral, because that thing is the energy portal into our material universe at this subsection of universe. So as we have a greater chance of encountering more and more energy spewing out of this thing the closer we get to it. And so our golden age here, which is really like this, our golden age here, in the golden age, we're getting this stuff spewed out to us so much that we're just swimming in it. We're just like big key, giant key. You're swimming in life force, right? It's going to be that kind of an experience. The mentation and the mental factors are greatly increased. Telepathy, et cetera, telekinesis, etc. That's why we have all of these rumors and myths about all of this stuff that came through from back here. Because just before we invented monotheism and all of that, in this period of time, we were waning down from a period when we could do that. So the Bronze Age, you couldn't do that kind of stuff, but in the Silver Age, you could. But in the Bronze Age, it was close enough, you remembered it. You remembered how it was done, you just couldn't replicate it. You didn't know why you couldn't replicate it, but it's because, and the reason you didn't know why is because you were removed from the radiant energy just enough that you lost that level of the radiant mental atmosphere. We can also call this stuff the ether, which is an easier name for it. And so your connection to the ether that radiates in that thought process to you, the radiant mental atmosphere, is actually physically diminished as you get further away from it. And so, of course, it is myth here about all of the stuff that the yogis did here. And everybody was a yogi here, right? You're all enlightened beings, more or less, here. And I'll explain too. This also explains about what enlightenment is. But in any event, so you're going along in here and you lose your mentation and your cognition abilities and all of the other abilities that go along with being connected to the big charge. So our ether, the big charge here, BC, is really powerful within the golden era, the golden ages, gives you all kinds of stuff that then later on diminishes in the following ages throughout the generations, because fewer and fewer people within each of the generations can do it. However, let's look at something else. As you become, this is slightly upturned in order to provide us with the idea, at least in the Western world, that we're looking at something that is a progression upwards, all right? And so our whole spiral thing, including us within it, is all of a progression. And so as you progress from humanity to humanity, being reincarnated each and every time through here and gaining stuff, as you get better at it, as you become more of a pro-human, you gain and carry with you certain things that are within the knower and the thinker, and you take those into the doer-in-the-body in the next incarnation. And when you take those things from the doer-in-the-body in the next incarnation, they're intuition or abilities, sensory, mental, etc. So people that have abilities, special abilities, are born, knowing of previous lives and so on. Now there's something else. You could have very short period of time between lives. If you're accelerating along the curve here, you'll find that that is the case. You become hardened to the process is one way of thinking about it. And so you need less time each time between lives to burn it off. It's more like, okay, give me more. Let me get sucked into this, get big key. All right, we'll burn it off and then give me more. I'm into that next life right away. And so you'll find people that are cycling through so fast that you get a female who is 5 years old, and she remembers a previous life that was barely 30 years ago. So it was within the generational memory of people that are around, and they can validate all of this stuff. This is how we get those impressions. But the male that was in between the female and two female incarnations, if that were the case, sometimes the female remembers the situation of the previous male. But in either case, the male in between may have lived a very short life and had because of an accident that had to be worked out, etc., and may have had a very brief period of time in the metempsychoses. So anyway, so there's that. But the closer you get to this, the more energy you get, the more abilities you get, the closer you get. Now, so as you go through lives and you progress, somewhere as you start getting up into the curve and you're getting really serious about being a pro-human, you bring with you more and more and more abilities each and every life. You're not born as dumb. Even if you are born back here in the Kali Yuga, you're not as stupid as you were the last time you were born in the Kali Yuga, because you've got more abilities, you're a better human, you've adjusted, you know, getting into this shit. Okay, so when that happens, you may be born with the ability to suck in the ether, to generate, pull it in from act as a better antenna, if you will. So even though you are out here, you're able to get in more of the energy from the dark sun, even though you're born within the Kali Yuga. Or, you know, in here it's relatively easy, right? But in these periods it's very difficult. But this is why in these periods of time we find the exceptional beings that do become enlightened and so forth. It's because they did their time, they were good at it, they were pro-humans, and they happened to be born back in this nasty time with the rest of us, but they brought with them that finer degree of antenna. And that's what they're doing, is they're sucking in better levels of juice, and so they're getting more of what it was like to be in these other periods of time as well. But okay, so that's that's basically it. It's taking a whole damn hour, and I've got a lot of stuff to do, and it's late. The only reason I'm doing this actually was because I had to let some flooring acclimate to the weather around here. You can't put that stuff down cold. Anyway, so that's basically the little wujo on the three part of being human. Why we don't remember it. There's a whole, as you can see, it's complicated crap. Karma comes into this. Karma goes with you from life to life to life and is part of this whole process. The karmans, the little karman elements that are part of the mechanisms, all of this stuff is all tied in to this larger understanding of what it is to be human in terms of the triune self. And the or the tuple, however you want to think about it, or the Trinity, whatever. This, by the way, is why we have the Trinity. This is why we have that stuff showing up in the monotheism. Is because it's a holdover from what we had before, when we could actually sense in here the other two parts of ourselves in a much more direct fashion than we can at this point. Although a lot of people, you know, they do sense, and they're living different lives here, and their whole lives are changing. And as we get closer and closer to the silver age, the energy levels are picking up. Everybody says it in the new age world. Well, this is why it's picking up, is because we're getting closer to the dark star, to Schwarzschild. You know, that the Nazis used to worship the black sun because it produces more energy and puts out more stuff. And so if you know how to harmonize with it, if you start doing some of these practices, then you can harmonize with our shift in there, and you can participate over the next 65 years, whether you're alive or dead. The remnants of your having been here can help propel people into a much more you know, enlightened, stable period of time. We said there's one last thing about that. Oh, pretty soon we're going to be at a boundary layer, which will be really cool. People that are born today that live to be 70 years old will live into the new era, but their children's children, their grandchildren and great-grandchildren will be born in that era. And so they'll be born in the Silver Age. Now that's really damn cool. And so they'll be at a transitional level. So people that are being born today, you know, through this year, next year, through these next 5 or 10 years, are going to be a real pivotal generation. And we'll actually see, because they're actually, their energy body itself is all mapped out, all this stuff is all mapped out, so it knows that it's going to be there at this boundary crossing. It knows it's going to have to deal with that. So the people that are being born over this next 10 years, next 20 years, their bodies are going to be adjusted to at an energetic level, and know they're going to be going through this transition period of time. So again, we're going to get into a crop of exceptional beings here. A lot of people that will be born now, that will, by the time that we get into the Silver Age, you know, their lives will be waning, but nonetheless, their ki will not, because they've been able to draw forward a lot of this ether, the radiant mental atmosphere, forward into their lives. And actually, when you act as an antenna like that, and you bring in the big ki, like in Aikido, bring the ki energy in, you radiate it back out. So, you know, it's cool for people around you. You get all whipped up, and they get whipped up too. So anyway, so there it is, guys. That's what it's like to be human, and this is why these damn cycles and shit matter, and why we don't remember. It's because there's no such thing as a stable spot in universe. Nothing. Universe is nothing but motion. If you're not in motion, you're not in harmony with universe. And that's why everything works better when you are in motion. And it's because of all of this crap. It took up an hour and 4 minutes. I'm really sorry. I thought I could just cram it out a lot quicker. You would not believe the crap we left out, though. Quick little bit of business here. No offense to any of the Masons. I have a great respect for the craft, even though I don't honor the structure of the lodge because of the corruption. The knowledge is certainly quite sound, even if those who are holding it over succumbed to the Kali Yuga. But you know, they can't be blamed, right? We're all born into that. So anyway, one other thing. We're actually getting our lab set up. We're making slow progress on putting up the deck, putting in the yurt, and all of that business. And so our new corporation, or not corporation, our cooperative effort, or an endeavor, we'll probably call it a cooperative endeavor, because it could be open source. We'll start putting out videos with some of the stuff that we're learning. And it's fantastic. And by the way, anybody using hot glue on rodent coils, see what happens when you use phenolic resin. And you can also do two-part epoxy. It's real easy to use. You can get, I'm using boat resin because I happen to have a lot of it around. You can get small batches of the stuff, and it'll eliminate some of the problems that you're getting with some of the distortions that the glue is providing, because it turns out the glue is paramagnetic. So it's going to start distorting because of the stuff that's in it that makes it melt. It's a paramagnetic substance. So you can get a thixotic, magnetically neutral or stable epoxy resin real cheap, and it really does enhance the effects of the star coils. And something we tried before it blew itself to shit was to bend the corners up on the star and fold them into a little cup. And that was really dangerous because, as I say, we overpowered it. That was my fault. I wasn't looking at the setting. I didn't have my glasses on. I turned on the damn power supply, and there it went. Anyway, but interesting stuff, and we'll show you what we're working on as soon as we can get the lab going and leave the camera set up permanently. So this is an answer to the "you asked for it" off of Twitter. Next time you ask for it, bear in mind this is the kind of crap you get. I'll see you guys. Bye.